to Media Melanie Talks TV. I'm Melanie, and today I am back with a live stream to talk about the series finale of The Handmaid's Tale. This is episode 10 of season 6, and it is called The Handmaid's Tale, and it ended the entire series. But it will be back with a spin-off into the Testaments. And before I get into the review, I do have a special guest today here. I'll bring her on in a second. But I just wanted to mention other shows that I'm covering, so please be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel. I am finishing up Your Friends and Neighbors on Apple TV+, covering Poker Face on Peacock, which is a really fun weekly case of the week starring Natasha Lyonne. And then next month, I will be doing The Buccaneers on Apple TV+. In July, Dexter Resurrection, and also The Summer I Turned Pretty, its final season. So lots of great shows coming up. I've also got The Institute, which is a Stephen King adaptation on my radar. That show's coming to MGM Plus at some point, but it's been very secretive regarding the release date. So as soon as I hear more on that, I will let everybody know. But without further ado, I'm going to bring on Kim. Her channel is Mixed Bag, and she's a friend of my channel. We've talked about other TV shows before. And Kim, thank you for joining today.
Thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Yes, I feel very in the middle with this finale. It didn't blow me out of the water, but it didn't completely disappoint me either. I think there were some things done really well, some things I was a little surprised and disappointed at. Overall, after you watched it for the first time, what was your initial reaction?
I agree. I mean, okay, so I saw a few comments online saying that this episode was mostly June walking around looking at stuff, and I had to laugh because I feel like there was a lot of closure, which was great. Some of that closure was a little too convenient for me, but then some things were really powerful. Like there was the scene where she burned her handmaid's uniform, and then as she's walking away, the power goes on, and I loved that scene. But then again, some things that were just a little too convenient for me. So overall, I would say like 7 out of 10. Fairly satisfying, not perfect.
I'm with you. That puts it in the C range, and I think that's a pretty fair assessment. And to your point, that scene after she burned her cloak and was walking down as the streetlights were going on, just the visual impact of that felt like, okay, the light in life is coming back again. Boston is no longer Gilead. That was a beautiful scene.
Yeah, and the rebels literally have the power, both literally and figuratively. I love that.
Yes, and something that I've done at the beginning of all my videos this season is issue a spoiler warning and say, hey, I haven't read the books. Please don't post any comments about what happens in the books. But we're at the point now where, yes, the series has ended. So for any of the book readers out there, feel free to post your thoughts and chime in about whether or not you thought the adaptation did a good job honoring the book or not, because I guess there were some things that they completely did differently, including the fact that in the books, Nick actually survives and ends up having a role in the Testaments. And Kim, how did you feel about Nick's death?
Again, it was one of those things that I thought was convenient because I didn't realize how team Nick and June I was until I saw him getting out of the car and getting onto the plane. And I was like, no, he's gone. I really feel like he was the one that she was truly in love with between him and Luke. But there's no way that she could have actually ended up with him. She was the face of the rebellion. He was literally a commander. So that was convenient for it to end that way for him. I didn't hate it. I thought it was an okay ending for him, considering what he'd become by this point. But at the same time, I feel like they really upped his Nazism this season compared to previous seasons, which was a little jarring.
I agree. And, someone had commented on my video last week saying that what they did to Nick this season made him kind of unrecognizable for the character that we had seen him become throughout these seasons. And in fact, that the actor who plays him, Max, said that he didn't even recognize his character. So I'm with you with the feeling of it just being kind of jarring, because Nick did prove along the way. And yes, he made some very questionable choices, but he was also an ally at some very important points throughout the series. So I think for me, I wouldn't have minded seeing his death on screen. And
Yeah.
I just keep wondering, did he sense June over there hiding behind the car? And I'm still not over the fact that there was just no security in that airport. I mean, honestly, I get it. Okay, they had to send the Guardians off for other things, but like they couldn't scrounge up at least one security person for that plane. I mean, seriously?
And nobody noticed her crouching behind the car like that. Like, come on.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And, Commander Lawrence's death hit me pretty hard, and I was really excited to see him go out a hero and make the right choice. And, back even to Nick for a second, when Luke acknowledged in this episode that June should be writing down her story and that there were people who loved her and who she loved and they shouldn't be forgotten, that did give me goosebumps, with Luke just acknowledging that June has this whole other part to her because of Gilead, and that made her a different person. And the fact that he's encouraging her to remember and honor Nick, that actually hit me pretty hard too.
He is an incredible person. I mean, I think I said before, you asked me if I was team Nick or team Luke, and it was hard to say because I truly think Luke is the better man. And he supports June in ways that I don't think Nick did. Nick selfishly wanted to be with her at all costs, at the cost of the rebellion, and she said no. I think Luke pushed her to be a better person and supported all those things that he couldn't really understand. He knew there was things that she had experienced that he just has no idea. But I also think there's hope for them in the future because, I mean, he said, we have a past, we will have a future. But I mean, right now, she's got to figure shit out.
Yeah, she needs to figure it out. And now Luke has also become almost a completely different person with his involvement in Mayday and just being so gung-ho to get out there and fight and make a difference. And it's kind of nice seeing that enthusiasm out of that character. I feel like he really took a page out of June's book. And when they each kind of said this whole, fuck yeah, they're going to meet there, I do think there's a great chance that they'll be able to rebuild and get back to a spot that honors how they were before, knowing that it will never be the same. And with Luke and June, I was pretty disappointed we didn't get to see them reunited with Hannah. That was something I wanted the most out of the series. And I understand, she's going to be involved with the Testaments. But for me, that was one of the biggest letdowns, I think, with the finale.
I totally agree. And I kind of wonder, so the showrunner, Bruce Miller, that's his name.
Yeah.
I read an interview with him and Elisabeth Moss, and he said that he had this ending planned from the beginning, but that when Margaret Atwood in 2019 said she was writing the Testaments, he had to rework a couple of things. And he was given a no-kill list, which included Hannah, it included Holly, and then also Aunt Lydia. And so it was basically the ending they planned, but he had to change a couple of things. And that really makes me wonder what the original plan was.
Right. That makes me wonder as well. And I liked Lydia's character arc, and she got some redemption. I appreciated when she was up on that stage and she yelled out that these women had been slaves of godless men. I thought that was great. And then for June to also come around, June went on this closure tour in this episode, and Lydia was one of those people where she said, let's see, I wrote it down here, something about blessed is the woman who does not walk in stride with the wicked. And June finding it in her heart to not necessarily forgive Aunt Lydia, but to thank her, I thought was very powerful as well.
Totally. I agree. And I felt like I enjoyed her character arc as well, but I was thinking about it and I felt like it was also a little bit quick compared to the character we saw in previous seasons. But then I was thinking back to season 1, and there's a scene where a man raped a pregnant handmaid and she lost the baby, and all of the handmaids are supposed to beat him to death. And Aunt Lydia had a whistle, and she said, okay, you're allowed to beat him until I blow the whistle. And then she just doesn't. And it kind of shows that she had this streak in her of fighting for justice for the handmaids from the beginning, even though obviously she caused them harm herself, right?
She sure did. And to have the callback with Janine and Naomi in that scene, this was where I cried. I shed tears when they brought June in the middle of the night to go see Janine because they needed a familiar face. When they said the familiar face thing, I completely lost it. And to see Janine so downtrodden and sad and, beaten or whatever they had done to her. And then to see the car pull up with Aunt Lydia, who acknowledges Janine's daughter's name as Charlotte. And for Naomi to give her back, I hated Naomi and I did not expect her to just hand her over. That was something I completely did not see coming.
I didn't see that coming at all. And it was one of those things that I felt was a little bit convenient, but maybe kind of fit with the last episode because she sort of she starts to soften a little bit towards Charlotte at the end of episode 9.
Yeah, and I think that Commander Lawrence in his parting words to Naomi did have some impact as well in terms of saying we need to let her learn, make sure you have her, books and paint and all that stuff. So I would like to think that one of Commander Lawrence's last acts, aside from sacrificing himself, was also planting that seed within Naomi to allow that to happen with Janine and Charlotte. And that's something I've wanted. So, okay, we didn't get Hannah, Luke, and June, but we did get Janine and Charlotte. And for me, I loved it. I just wanted that more than anything. And poor Janine, she's had quite a bit of struggles throughout the season. So for her to have a happy ending, just 10 out of 10 for me.
And Charlotte's young enough that they still had a happy reunion, whereas I kind of wonder if we had seen Hannah reunited with June, would it have been the happy reunion we wanted? I don't know, because she's pretty settled into her new place in Gilead. It's been a long time. I think it's been 7 years at this point. So It would have been tough.
And, even to that point, I thought in some ways that this was almost too happy of an ending. And there were some dark parts. I loved seeing the Guardian strung up on the wall when Emily came back and whatnot. Yeah. But there were some parts I'm just like, this seems like too happy of an ending. And I kept thinking it was going to end. I'm like, oh, is this it? Well, like when she's burning her cloak, they're playing a song and all of the big important scenes after that. I'm like, okay, this is it. And it kind of kept going. But how about the return of Emily? I was not expecting that. And also, did we need that?
I was so happy to see that, honestly. When I heard her, I can't remember what she said to June as she came up to her. But I love that June called her a pious little shit.
Yes. And then she's like, that's blasphemous or blasphemy or whatever. Yeah, that was great.
I'm definitely happy that we saw her for a little bit there, because that was a big question mark. Like, where was she? And it turns out she was fighting the whole time. I'm not sure exactly what her role was, but it was definitely nice to see her. But I'm also a huge Alexis fan, so
yes,
love
yes.
Girls.
But something I was disappointed we didn't get more of in this episode was more Moira. I wanted more, and we got that karaoke scene, which is nice, but for me it felt a little bit out of place. It's a nice sentiment. I love to see an alternate universe where they could have been happy singing karaoke, but at the same time, it felt for me a little bit disjointed, and I would have preferred swapping that with more with Moira, other than just the mention from Luke that they're gonna go, fuck some shit up or whatever.
Yeah, if it weren't for Moira, June never would have escaped Gilead. So it seemed, I was definitely bummed, and I was hoping to see where she was going to end up. And I don't think they even had a conversation, did they, in the finale? I don't
think so. Yeah. And I kept waiting for it to happen. Like, where is the June and Moira? And yeah, it was great. Emily came back. But I just really would have liked to see more with Moira. She was such a prominent character throughout. And it makes me wonder, will she be in the Testaments? I haven't really read much on that. I know Aunt Lydia and Hannah are involved, but I've really been staying away from spoilers on that. So I'm curious to know, will there be any future involvement or not? I don't know.
I know very little about it. I know it features 3 women from The Handmaid's Tale prominently, and I know her daughters play a role, and that's all I know.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm excited for the Testaments. I definitely want to see where it goes, and I may or may not cover the whole season, but I'm definitely going to give it a whirl and see what happens. But another thing I loved from this episode, so I actually grew up in Boston, and they had the Fenway Park and so much Boston energy. And then when Serena puts on the little Red Sox onesie at the end that June gave her, I don't know, I just really loved that. And Serena, just... wow, I wasn't sure how I wanted her story to end, right? Because, she's pretty reprehensible, but I really liked the apology. That nearly brought me to tears as well. And when June said, you should be ashamed, and that she forgives her, that was very intense to watch.
So much forgiveness from June to different people in this episode. A lot of closure for her. I think that Serena's ending was just. She didn't exactly have a happy ending. Some people thought she was going to end up with Chuelo. And, there's hints to that, but no. She ended up in a refugee camp in a scrappy little square with her baby, and she doesn't even know if she has food or diapers, and, she's not exactly welcome there because kids aren't supposed to be there. She has the bare basics, but she does still have her baby.
She
and
does,
she
and
has her
that's what
life.
she's wanted this entire time. And so, in that aspect, yes, it is a happy ending, but to have all
Mhm.
of the comforts taken away from her and to experience life in more of a way as some of the repressed women in Gilead,
Mhm.
I thought that was great as they panned
Mhm.
out from that shelter and saw the big crowd and kids aren't allowed to stay there. Where is she going to go next? And the anxiety she must be experiencing, which is warranted, and she should be
Mhm.
experiencing some level of fear, anxiety, and stress, as well as the happiness of having her son.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's totally just for her to experience what she's perpetuated on people.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Let's see. What else do I have here? Holly coming back and the mom
Yeah.
reunion, and then June deciding she's going to keep fighting and leave Nicole again with her mom. It was nice seeing them back together. And I mean, what a hard decision to make. You've got one daughter out there, you want to go find her in Colorado, but then you have another daughter that you're going to leave. And it's
Yeah.
mixed emotions about that as a mother. And when June told her mom that she taught her how to fight, that was a nice moment too. I liked that.
I have struggled throughout the last couple seasons with June's treatment of Holly, and I think a lot of it is her trauma and having difficulty bonding with Holly. Um, but it can't help. I can't help but feel like she's abandoning one daughter to fight for another. I also kind of wonder why. I mean, we needed to see that June and Holly reunion, but why bring them back from Alaska to a newly liberated war zone?
Yes. I
Like
mean,
that seems
it's,
like a
they're
long
not
trip.
out of danger here, right? And her
Yeah.
whole thing is, I need to keep you safe, but are they safe there?
Yeah. So like mom gets back with baby and she's like, okay, can you just keep babysitting? Maybe just head right back where you came from.
No, and her mom's like, how long are we talking here? You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how long are we talking? And are we going to see June in the Testaments? I mean, I would think so if her mission is to go get Hannah, but maybe not because what is it, a 15-year flash forward, I think?
Oh yeah. I can't remember. I mean, I would love for her to have at least a guest appearance in that because I still eventually want to see a June and Hannah reunion. And I think maybe if it's 15 years in the future, it might be a happier one because Hannah will have perspective and she'll understand more.
Absolutely. And I think that she will also take a page out of June's book, like Luke, knowing her mom was this warrior and was this hero, and
Yeah.
hopefully engage in some fighting and rebellion of her own.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see. And kind of an unpopular opinion, but I thought June should have died in the last episode. So I guess this whole time I'm just reconciling the fact that she's still alive. And for
Mhm.
me, I think it would have been more impactful if she had died in that hanging after yelling out about not letting the bastards keep you down. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that scene where she screams out, "Don't let the bastards grind you down," and then she's launched into the air. I was in tears, and I watched this episode a little late because I had to work Tuesday, and I spent the whole day avoiding spoilers, but fully expecting to see her death because everyone was just talking about how crazy the episode was, and so I was fully prepared for that, and I expected to see that. I think it would have been a wonderful martyr moment for her, being the face of the
Yes.
rebellion, but
Yes.
no, plot armor.
Yeah, so much plot armor. I mean, layers and layers of plot armor for her to
Yeah.
have survived all of this. And this episode was definitely getting into some of the things I didn't love. There were a lot of June close-ups and June
Mhm.
dialogue, and that's been a real trend this season. And I do think they could have probably shortened the season, maybe down even into 8 episodes or something, and cut
Yeah.
some of that stuff out. But that said, the show is visually gorgeous. The acting is great. But I do think with Elisabeth Moss directing, there's a lot of FaceTime with June.
I agree. Totally. Yeah. And she directed this episode. Did she direct the last one too, or just this one?
I believe she did the last one as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And I got a lot of hate in my last video because it was called execution. And yes, I fully realize execution can mean carrying out a plan and that also the commanders were executed. But I really was expecting there to be one more handmaid execution or June's death in that last episode. So, I don't think that makes me a bad person because I wanted one last impactful death to really get us
Yeah.
all fired up and remember why we hate Gilead. But we
Yeah.
didn't get that, but seeing some of those guardians strung up in this episode and watching them look at the wall, I think at least that kind of like got me there a little bit more.
I'm really surprised that I thought for sure either Moira or Janine, if June didn't die, it would be Moira or Janine. And Moira might have been an impactful death, because then we still would have had the Janine and Charlotte reunion, but it would have been real life, which is how the show has been like basically up until last season.
Absolutely. I think Moira dying in the last episode would have been impactful, and I was almost expecting it, especially because we literally got no Moira content in the finale. And like I said earlier, she's been such an important part of this show, and I think that was a real disservice to her character. And maybe it would have been better to have her die in the previous episode to really give her that type of impact that I think some of us were looking for.
Yeah. I also cannot believe that we didn't see the commander's deaths on screen. I wanted to see Janine kill, I can't remember his name now, and I looked it up ahead of time, but the commander that singled her out at Jezebel's, you remember him? He was in that other show with Seth from the OC. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Yeah. And another thing with Twello and Serena, I thought it was really interesting that we got a little more context into him in terms of he closes his eyes and he sees his ex-wife and his son in Hawaii, and he's fighting so his son doesn't have to. And to your point, we were kind of expecting maybe him and Serena to get together, but when he said, "I'll find you," are we thinking that that could be endgame for Serena? And how would a man like him justify being with Serena? I mean, is there any world in which do you think that could ever work?
I mean, I can see it. I think they've got some chemistry, but I don't think she deserves it.
Yeah.
I mean, she's made amends for what she's done. It doesn't mean she deserves a totally clean slate.
Right. I think that's fair. That's definitely fair. And Twello, gave June the good news that Hannah was going to be coming closer to Washington, D.C., 2,000 miles closer. And when he said that, I was really thinking, oh, this is great. We're going to be getting her by the end of the episode. And I just keep thinking, for me, like, the biggest fail is, again, not having Hannah. We have a comment up here. Moira's death would have been an unnecessary killing of a woman of color, and there have already been so many women of color who've died for June. Couldn't agree more. I personally didn't think of it as much as the color of her skin, but just being such an impactful character and ally for June, and in terms of that. And to that point, it could have been Janine as well. I mean, either one of them, I think, would have been an impactful death, but I am glad that Janine did survive to get the reunion with Charlotte, but I loved Moira's character, and I just thought that would have been just another nail in the coffin as to why Gilead is such a hateful and terrible, terrible place.
Yeah. Did it seem to you like Gilead was a lot smaller this season than in other seasons? Like, it almost felt like everything was just taking place in this really tiny little community, not a full-on country. I don't know. It felt different somehow.
Yeah, a little bit of a bubble, I guess. And maybe that is to focus in on the fact that they were really focusing this attack on Boston and knew that they wouldn't have the resources to get to the rest of Gilead. But in my mind as well, okay, it's great. They've taken down Boston. It's no longer part of Gilead. But how much more are they going to have in order to take down the rest of Gilead? Did they exhaust most of their forces? Because it does seem like they're going to need international assistance in order to, like, really take them down, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Let's see. What else do we have here? Let's see. Oh, the ending and the callback. First of all, I love the fact that they're making this into June writing a book, and we had multiple characters talking to her about writing the book and sharing her story. But when that final scene came in the first season, I believe it was the season 1 finale, she said, or she ended it with "My name is June," and now she ended this one with "My name is Offred." Thought that was a really nice callback to the first season, and just the concept of this becoming her story, this episode being called The Handmaid's Tale. I just thought that was really well done. And I thought it was actually funny how multiple characters were telling her she needs to write down the story. And she's like, no, it's violence and fear. And then her mom kind of puts it in a different context, and she comes around and she's going to tell her story, which is maybe the most important ending, I guess, of all.
Yeah, I loved that, the circular sort of plot line there. It ends in the place it began, and she's going to start writing down her tale. So I like that as well.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, overall, just from the series as a whole, I can't believe it's over, first of all, and now we're going to have to move on to the Testaments. But I mean, there were really some middling feelings that I think we both had about
Mhm.
this. And it's interesting with the online sentiments too, because there's a lot of people out there saying that they are so dissatisfied. We were talking before this
Mhm.
about people boycotting the finale because of Nick's death, which I
Yeah.
find to be very interesting.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? I mean, would you not watch a finale of a show you've watched for years because of the way that they killed off a character that maybe people didn't like?
No, never. Even if I've invested a lot of time into a show, I will always watch the finale. I would just, my curiosity would just get the best of me. But also, I think a lot of people kind of, they got swept up in the Nick and June romance, but that wasn't supposed to be the main focal point of the show. It's supposed to be the Handmaid's Tale, not the Nick and June tale, right? Like, it was never about who she would end up with. It was about her and her story. So it didn't bother me so much that she didn't end up with either of them. But I can see how people would have been upset because, I mean, I did love Nick and June together, at least in the earlier days.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I was totally team Nick and June. And when they had that montage of her and Nick and some of those moments here, I mean, I didn't
Mhm.
cry, but it really just made me appreciate how complex of a character he was and how up and down I think many of us were. And the final scene where Lawrence tells him that he should have listened to June and, he was thinking he chose the winners and all this.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have liked to see his death, I guess, on screen, but maybe it was more impactful off screen. And in terms of all these characters who did get some sort of redemption arc or story, which one do you think had the strongest story of redemption?
Oh, Commander Lawrence. I just can't help but love him. And I mean, in the last couple seasons, there was a couple moments where I was like, okay, why are you doing that? This isn't the character I thought you were. But he just really came around in the end. So I love the role that he ended up playing.
Same. When he put his hand over his heart and realized, he's not coming back and he's going to sacrifice himself. I think for me,
Mhm.
that was one of the most impactful moments of the entire series. I've wanted Lawrence to hop from one side of the fence to the other, and he finally did. And I thought that was incredibly well done. I was just really surprised that Nick also got on that plane.
Yeah, as soon as the car pulled up, I was like, come on, but not surprised really.
Not surprised. We have her real review in the comments saying, I think they should have disconnected June and Hannah from the spinoff and just made the spinoff with one of the other characters. Now that's interesting, and I do somewhat agree because then we could have really had more closure for June, and we really didn't get that, and we may never get that. We may get it in retrospect in some sort of flashback from Hannah in the Testaments, and it does leave it ambiguous for the viewers, but I do think it would have been really nice to get some sort of closure, or whether or not that meant June dying, whether or not that meant her getting to Colorado and starting the mission, or I guess now Washington, D.C. But I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this. I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a home run and it wasn't a complete fail either. It really is truly the definition of like a middling episode of television for me.
I think if the Testaments wasn't in production, I mean, they could have had a better finale. They could have included Hannah, and I think it would have been stronger if they had been able to. I mean, even if we had at least seen Hannah's point of view a little bit, but we haven't seen her in a long time. I don't think we saw her all this season, did we? I don't think
No.
so.
I don't think so either. And we know that she did have some sort of recollection of her life before, because at one point she was writing the name Hannah, and of course she's renamed Agnes now.
Yeah.
But it is just slightly disappointing not getting the one thing that you were hoping for. And yes, again, Janine got the reunion that I think many of us wanted. But man,
Mhm.
she went through so much. And speaking of Janine, she played a character on You, which I know
Yeah.
you watched, Bronte,
Yeah.
and you really liked her character there. I
Yeah.
wasn't as sold, but I mean, Madeline Brewer is a very talented actress. And
Yeah.
which do you think she did better? Do you think she did Janine better or Bronte better in this last season of You?
I think nothing compares to her portrayal of Janine, especially in the earlier few seasons. She is unhinged. I loved her in the first few seasons and still do, but especially loved her in the first few seasons. And I think when I saw the actress appear on You, that's what I expected from the character. And then she was very different in the end. She wasn't unhinged or anything like that, really.
Yeah.
Um, But I did really enjoy her portrayal, but definitely Janine has a special place in my heart for sure.
Let me ask you this. There was an interview with Madeline Brewer, and she said it wouldn't have been true to her character to have killed off Commander Bell. But I thought I would have liked to have seen Janine take that step and get that rage out, and I would have liked to have seen her be the one to stab him in the eye and kill him. And like, June's always the hero, and I understand maybe it is not something in her character's nature, but that was another kind of miss for me this season. I would have really liked to have seen her just take Commander Bell down.
I agree. And I think she kind of went from being a delicate flower from earlier who needed protecting to being her own strong person. I mean, she's putting up with a lot of shit at Jezebel's and, you know, making it through. It would have been nice to see that strength personified in that act for sure.
Definitely. And I will also say that that execution of the women of Jezebel's in the last episode, that was pretty rough. That was maybe one of the more difficult scenes, I think, to watch this season. And it happened so fast in that episode. I mean, it took me a little while to really get over that. And Janine's got a little bit of plot armor too. I understand why they pulled her out, but at the same time, Janine's got 9 lives. I mean, so does Aunt Lydia. I think June even referenced that about Aunt Lydia in this episode as well. So I think it's interesting, but it was also just a really satisfying end for Janine as a whole. And Lydia saying, you know, take care of my Janine. Oh my goodness. She's always had that special sentiment for her. And I think it's that connection that really shifted Aunt Lydia's perspective and allowed things to happen the way they did towards the end of the series.
Yeah, I think if it weren't for Janine, Lydia might not have ended up the way she did. But also, were you surprised that she was just let go by the eyes?
I wasn't. I wanted to know at the beginning of the episode, June's like, okay, where's Janine? Twila's like, yeah, we'll try to get more information. But to your point, yeah, they're just going to let her go. And where was she? What was she doing? I mean, there's just some dots that weren't fully connected. And I think that was definitely one of them. So yeah, and why was she in such rough shape? What were they doing to her? The poor girl. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Her real review, Madeline Brewer and Bradley Whitford knocked their roles out of the park. Agree with Melanie that Janine should have killed Belle. Yes, I mean, her and Bradley Whitford were 2 of, I think, the strongest actors in the season as a whole. And I mean, Elisabeth Moss is a great actress. She's great, but it was just a little bit too much Moss for me, I think, at times. And no shade or disrespect whatsoever, but I wouldn't have minded just a little bit more shift in focus to some of these other characters at some points. And Janine and Where Was She is the perfect example of that.
I actually hadn't realized, maybe I missed it at the end of episode 9, but I didn't realize that she was still in Gilead. I thought that she was liberated with June.
I thought so too. I thought they were saying that they were gonna take her to a safe place when all the women got in the truck after the attack. So I didn't realize that either. And I don't know if she went back trying to get Charlotte and got captured, but there's definitely some things that we don't know unless we missed them. But
it could well be that I missed. I find this show hard to watch more than once. The first season was so intense, and for me, I watched it when it first came out, and I had just had my second son, and I was on maternity leave, and I was just binging this show, and it was so hard to watch, especially Janine scenes where Charlotte is taken from her. So maybe I have a little bit of PTSD from that. It's hard to rewatch this show. It's intense.
I can see that. When this show first came out, I remember just the absolute horror that I experienced, and I couldn't stop talking about it to people. And with the political climate of life right now, I think it feels a little bit too close to reality for some of us, especially as women. I mean, I know you live in Canada, I'm here in the US, and, you know, things are a little tumultuous right now. So this show was one of the most horrific but also impactful shows, I think, in maybe the past decade. And it was hard to watch at times, but it was also really hard to turn away, especially from some of these complex characters like Lawrence and Nick. They really just made the show for me.
Totally. And especially season 5, when we see how like Canada is kind of portrayed as this perfect sort of utopia everyone can escape to. But then we see those like a disinformation leak out in Canada and the way June's treated and everyone's against refugees. Like we do have a bit of that here, and it's horrific. But I love to see real life reflected in the show like this.
Absolutely. And I am very curious to see exactly what the Testaments is going to bring to the table in terms of this 15-year flash forward. And Ann Dowd, who plays Aunt Lydia, I'm not sure, what her age is, but a 15-year progression, I mean, she's going to be older. How does that work in terms of aging her and telling the story, and how much fight and vigor is this character going to have left in her? I'm really curious to know how that's all going to work out.
Totally. I've got to read the book this summer. I have no ideas.
I think I'm finally going to actually read The Handmaid's Tale now, but I have heard that it is also very slow. And I mean, is it worth reading now after watching the show? And I guess I pose this question to anybody who's read the book. Drop a comment and let me know. Is it now worth reading, or should I just kind of let my experience be in watching the show? I don't know.
I mean, I know for me, I love watching a show or movie first and then reading the book, because a lot of the time the book has more details that just can't be portrayed. And so if you read the book first, you'll inevitably be disappointed by the show or movie. But if you read the book after, then you get so much extra detail. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
That is a really good point. I think 9 times out of 10, the book is better. Daisy Jones and the Six is a great example of that for me. Little Fires Everywhere is another one. Apples Never Fall, some recent adaptations that obviously the book did it better. So to your point, yeah, maybe it is better to read it afterwards, because a lot of times the show is a letdown. And I guess I can't get over the fact that Nick lives in the books and dies here. I mean, that is a really big change, and for Bruce Miller to have got the no-kill list for the Testaments, but Nick wasn't on it. I wonder what the discussions were like to justify his death and how they finally came to arrive at the manner in which he did die.
I know. I've thought about that too. I think they just really needed June to be done with him, and that was the best way to cement that. They needed to kind of put an end to the whole romance. Because it was kind of a subplot in the first couple of seasons, and then it became a focal point for a lot of people, and it wasn't supposed to be.
And just going back to what I said before about Luke acknowledging the fact that him and June were a thing. I mean, getting goosebumps now even talking about it. He had tears in his eyes as he was saying it. Just that final scene between Luke and June. June is going to go be able to find Hannah, get her back, and that her and Luke will end up reuniting. But again, where's Moira? Like, come on. Like,
Moira deserved an ending. Justice for Moira.
Seriously, justice for Moira. That was like one of my biggest disappointments in this entire episode, besides the whole Hannah thing. But what about you? What was your highest high and lowest low from this finale?
Okay, I really loved her seeing Emily again. I yelled at the screen when she stepped on. I loved that. I know you said one, but the second one. I loved seeing the wall, seeing the Guardians on the wall and the murals that were painted. That was such a big swap from what we saw in the beginning. Everyone was always afraid of ending up on the wall, and now they've turned it into something they don't need to be afraid of anymore. So I loved that. And then I would definitely say, I can't decide between whether it's her not reuniting with Hannah or whether it's Moira's lack of ending. I was pretty disappointed about Moira not having a satisfying ending. I hope she shows up in the Testaments.
I'm with you on all of those points, especially that visual of having the Guardians up on the wall. And the fact that they just kept them there after, I mean, who knows how many days now they've been there. I think actually June said at some point maybe how long it's been. I don't know, 3 weeks, I forget. But the fact that they're just casually hanging there and, people walking by and looking at them. And also how the episode ended with June going back to the Waterford house and sort of reliving a little bit of this to really get her to that place of telling her story. I thought that was pretty impactful as well.
I wasn't expecting that, but I did like it for sure.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that was well done. And, like we kind of both talked about, this was definitely an average season finale. I mean, it wasn't the worst. It wasn't the best. We did get some form of closure. I wouldn't call it a bow ending show. I'm always talking about bow endings, and I love everything wrapped up neatly. And we didn't get that, but I do think we got enough closure, enough redemption from some of those big characters. And I will just never forget Commander Lawrence. I think that he was just probably my favorite character, him and Janine, throughout this entire series. And just props to him and the way that he conducted that final scene and getting on the plane. It gives me so much hope that even some of the most detestable people, and while he was not the worst or most detestable commander, the fact that he still made the sacrifice and knew what he had to do just speaks volumes for, the series as a whole, and redemption arcs of characters. It might be one of the best redemption arcs of all time.
Totally agreed. Yeah.
Ugh. Wow. I just can't believe it's over, Kim, and I'm so glad that you were able to come and talk to me about this today. What other shows are you watching right now?
Well, I'm going to be watching the new season of And Just Like That. A little different, but still a women-focused show, so I love that.
Yeah.
And besides that, just finished watching The Last of Us, but that's about all I'm watching at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on Poker Face, finishing out Your Friends and Neighbors. Did you watch The Summer I Turned Pretty or The Buccaneers?
No, I haven't seen either of those, actually. I'll have to put them on my list because I was just saying to my husband the other day, I was like, there's nothing I'm interested in on TV right now. I did just finish watching Good American Family, I think it's called, with Ellen Pompeo.
Oh my gosh.
That was crazy.
How disturbing and creepy is that show? Like, what an alarming... The fact that that is actually based on reality is just wild to me.
Oh, it was brutal. It was totally brutal. Yeah, but that was good. I really liked it. And it has kind of low ratings on IMDb, but I don't think it deserves it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I thought it was like kind of horrifying in a really impactful way. And I mentioned at the beginning that there's another show coming out on MGM Plus. Now, I know you like the show From, and MGM Plus has some great shows, but this new one called The Institute is adapted from Stephen King's book, and it looks like it's got some promise. So I'm keeping that on my radar, and I'm just waiting for them to announce a premiere date. But I wanted to put that on your radar too, because I do feel like it has some vibes of From. I believe Victor's dad, Henry, is in that show. So a little bit of cast crossover there as well.
I do love Stephen King, so
yeah, definitely keep that one on your radar. And I think we've talked about coming back and doing another video. We've both got kids. We've talked about doing something, TV shows that are appropriate for tweens or teens, and I think that could be something fun that we could come back and do if you're still interested.
Totally, yeah. I'm always looking for ideas of things for my 13-year-old to watch, and we're always discovering things we can watch together. So, it sounds fun.
Yes. Hey, School Spirits on Paramount Plus. I think I told you about it. Season 1's on Netflix. Like, check that out with your 13-year-old. I think she might enjoy it.
Nice. I'll have to do that.
Yes. But Kim, thank you so much for joining. This was really great, and I think we both agreed that we would give this series finale a C. I think that's a pretty fair grade. Not terrible, not the best, but somewhere in the middle. So I encourage everyone who watched the video, drop your grade or rating down in the comments. Let us know what you thought, highs and lows of the episode. Yeah. Definitely let us know what you thought. And I'll be back again soon. And Kim, thank you again. Tell everybody where they can follow you.
Yes. Oh, yes. Mixed Bag or at Kim Ceriko, I think, is probably the best way to find me. There's a few mixed bags out there.
Yes. Yeah. I love your YouTube channel. You do have a mixed bag of content, and I love that, especially for other moms. You do a really great job. So thank you for that as well.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
All right. Well, I'll be back again soon. Kim, thank you again. And with that, Media Melanie, clicking off.